You're listening to Company Men.
I'm Chuck Tomervik.
I'm Jared Carter.
We've both been invited in when we really needed it, and you can do that for someone too.
You need to get them like a little weight set for children. And just tell them, like, hey, look, if you want to start just winning and ending this, you got to start working out.
Yeah.
Maybe get them some kid workout videos.
Yeah. We'll get a real, like, prison atmosphere. Hey, Jared, you made me something.
I sure did. I made you a cocktail.
That's lovely.
I know that I knew that you were going to make me a cocktail.
Yep.
And so I thought I'd like to do that too. And what I made you, let me just shake it up here in the shaker.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. What I did is I made a classic margarita and I added a little blue curacao.
That is a delightful color. That's terrifying. That color shouldn't be food.
I want to take a picture of it.
You should take a picture. We're going to throw this up on Instagram. This is probably a bad time to try and take a picture while we're recording this here podcast. But
it's fine. Go to our Instagram. Check this out. It's actually...
It really is like super gorgeous.
Yeah.
I have always been distressed by this color of thing being eaten. Like whether it's a Jolly Rancher... or like any kind of blue raspberry Slurpee.
Yeah, well, it's like we've actually been called out on Facebook for we seem to come after the color blue quite a bit, and we're really backing that up. But you're right, and I've said the same. Blue barely exists at all, like in nature. Certainly
not in food.
Yeah,
and I know what you're going to say, but what about blueberries? You find me a blueberry, because those suckers are purple. Like, right. I'm just going to come out and say it. Nobody else will, but I'll say it. Blueberries are purple.
There's another podcast. Do you listen to Radiolab?
Yeah.
I love Radiolab. And I believe it was Radiolab. I could be getting this wrong now. That actually did a story once on the color blue. And they talked about how if you look at ancient writings, when they describe the sky, they don't use the word blue. They'll describe it as red. It's been described as gray. But until somebody tells you that the sky is blue, there's even this guy, a researcher, who went out of his way to make sure that his daughter never heard that the sky was blue. And when she was old enough to speak, asked her what color the sky was, and she said it was purple.
Are we sure that the sky doesn't just change colors every couple thousand years? Because I feel like that's a weird assumption to make, is that it definitely wasn't red or gray.
Yeah. Maybe it was. Maybe it depends on the way the sky's feeling.
It's just it's been a rough couple thousand.
It's been feeling blue for a while.
A little blue. Yeah. Well, I made you a cocktail. I did. I have been just getting into making cocktails. And my wife just came back from a trip. I am just now reassimilating back into humanity. Yeah. Because I turn into just like a ball of slime while she's gone. Incapable of doing like normal human stuff. But I'm very glad.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's a really good thing she's back. And she, being the wonderful woman she is, brought me back some lovely drinks. Now, I am a man of complicated taste, and I would never expect her to know what I do like, but she does know that I like to try weird stuff. And so she brought me back a couple of really interesting things, and the base for this cocktail is what some folks call a white dog or a clear whiskey. This is a whiskey, normally these guys are brown and have that like deep, rich color. But if you've ever seen like moonshine, this is whiskey before it goes into the barrel and gets aged, which is where all that color comes from. Every whiskey you've ever had is clear at first, and then gets its color from the wood that it lives in for however long.
I did not know that.
So this that she brought me, and before you try the cocktail I made you, I want you to try just the whiskey on its own. I poured you just a little bit there, and looking at it, that's like a glass of water there.
Yeah.
It's really funky on the nose. I don't know. Try that. Tell me what you think about that.
Like you let me smell this earlier, and I thought that it smelled. I had no idea what this was because it was weird.
Yeah,
and still
doesn't remind me of whiskey at all.
Oh, that's strange.
It's very weird.
Wow, I don't even know how to describe that. I want to try this cocktail.
Yeah, so I drank that, and I wasn't like, ooh, wow, I want to drink a lot more of that.
No, that's a lot closer to rubbing alcohol than most liquors.
It's missing a lot of like that, because I love me some whiskey, but it's missing a lot of that, like that, aged, that like woody, like a lot of the kinds of flavors that I really like from
I know.
whiskey.
One of the whiskeys you enjoy the most, specifically, is mesquite smoked flavor.
So this, I decided to set out and figure out what I could do with it. I did a little bit of research and found out that folks are really into the white dog, as they call it, for making cocktails. And so rather than figure out what kinds of cocktails they made, I just grabbed what was in my bar.
Yeah.
Which isn't a whole ton in terms of making cocktails, but I came up with this concoction, which I was pretty happy with. I had myself one last night, and I've made you one. It's 2 parts of this white dog whiskey. It's about 1 part coffee liqueur, and just a little splash of triple sec. Which is basically the only ingredients I owned. But I was pretty happy with how that came out.
I was expecting maple syrup after your wife came back from Vermont.
The other whiskey that she got me is a maple syrup bourbon, which I have not tried yet.
Oh, I'd like to try that sometime. Taste that. That's really good. That's very drinkable.
It's super drinkable. Yeah, much more drinkable than the white whiskey on its lonesome.
No, I like that. And I like that it's not so sweet that you can't taste, like the coffee liqueur really stands out. That's really good. I love margaritas. My 2 favorite drinks, beer and margaritas. This is a classic margarita that is just some silver tequila, a little triple sec, some lime juice, some fresh lime juice. And then I added that splash of blue curacao, which is a liqueur that I don't really care for, because of how blue it turns everything.
And really, that's all you want it for, is to like get a sorority girl all excited when she sees it.
Which is, for the record, since Chuck's gonna put that out there, not why I purchased that.
Well,
but
there's no other purpose for that item, so I'm not making any accusations, just observations.
Oh man.
That is a tasty margarita. It's so fresh. It was so hot today. This is perfect.
Oh,
this
good.
is really nice.
Glad you like it. That's why I like margaritas. I especially like the fresh lime juice. I'm not a big fan of margarita mix at all. It's got a very syrupy, just kind of texture to it that I'm not a big fan of. But I really like just a really simple margarita like that. I'm usually not into adding much of anything, but what kind of flavor does the blue curacao?
It's not doing a whole lot, I don't think. It definitely kind of sweetened it up, I think. Although maybe that's just kind of what my eyes are doing, because it looks like candy. But I really like what I like about the margaritas that you make. And I like a lot of different margaritas. I'm a little on the other side of that. I like margaritas to play a little bit. I like some other ingredients. I like them to get a little wacky.
Yeah.
But I really like the very simple margaritas you make, because you can kind of taste all the ingredients just kind of hanging out together, right? You've just got like tequila and lime juice and salt in here, basically, right?
Yeah.
And it's
a little triple sec.
Yeah, and it's a really nice. They're nicely balanced. It's just really easy to wrap my mouth around.
Yeah, that with chips and salsa is one of my favorite. Just go-tos. I like it almost as much as I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with Lay's chips and paste picante salsa, which is a weird combination.
You're really about like the weird combos right now.
I don't like paste in any other setting, but specifically peanut butter and jelly with chips and paste is the thing that I liked growing up.
As I am becoming fearful for the future of our podcast. If anyone is listening,
well, where do you get your salsas from? New York City?
Oh, goodness gracious! Listening to you over the past couple weeks, I don't know that we can tout ourselves as fellas who know how to put together a meal that people would want to eat.
I think we just need to get past that anyways. I mean, we're good enough cooks. I read this quote today, and it made me think of us so much. I cannot remember exactly what it said, but it was along the lines of, when a woman cooks you food, it's ho-hum, pass another bowl of whatever. When a guy cooks you food, you gotta act like he built the damn Taj Mahal. I feel like that described us to like a T.
That is true.
Like, my wife will make food, and I'll just be like, "Thanks for the food, honey. This is good." When I make food, I expect nothing less than just absolute praise and adoration for how wonderful a cook I am.
I made my daughter's lunches for the last 2 weeks while my wife was out of town, and I'm like making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, turkey sandwiches, right? I'm putting a thing of applesauce in a box for her, and I absolutely, if she didn't come home and say "Wow, Dad," or if she didn't eat it all, whoo boy, did I feel slighted.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. That is 100% true of me. Yeah.
That's fine. I think we're okay.
I think we're okay.
We're still good cooks.
Yeah.
We're good.
Absolutely. We're very, very good.
We're very good.
Yeah. Don't worry, folks. We're still very full of ourselves.
And I promise everybody out there, I will never invite you over and be like, surprise, peanut butter and pickle sandwiches. I will.
Don't
here's some paste picante sauce. Unless I just don't like you, then maybe. Just feeling mad.
There's the sign.
Hey,
you know what I'm going to do?
What are you going to do?
It's time for Scenario Oh No's.
Wow, I'm really glad that I didn't pay somebody $5 to do that better than you.
I paid for lessons. I went out and...
That's why you were out of town this week.
Yes, I got someone to teach me how to sound like a very classy British lady so that I could do that for you. That was for you.
That was
You're
good.
welcome.
Scenario Oh No's.
That's it. You got it too.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Well,
nailed it.
All right, hit me.
I'm going to hit you with that scenario. Oh, no. You are hosting a party. You've got a handful of friends over, mostly folks without kids, maybe a few with. You, obviously, are you in this situation. You have 9, 10, 100 kids. You have kids everywhere. I don't know how many you have, but... two of them get into an all-out brawl, in your living room or onto the dining table as you guys are having dinner. And these are your actual children.
My actual children.
Yes, this is you playing you in real life with your kids, and your kids get into a fight, which turns into fisticuffs there in your living room during your get-together. Scenario, no, go.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have definitely fallen into that camp at times of being that dad who addresses situations with my children. I'm embarrassed to say this, in front of people differently than I would address it without people around. So were people not around, I would be more inclined to, and my wife hates this, I'd be more inclined to just let the fight ensue. I would like in my head, and maybe this comes from I don't know. I watch a lot of nature documentaries. I'm just thinking if you just let them fight, eventually one is going to be seen as the dominant alpha male pack leader, and that the other one will eventually submit.
Then you'll thin the herd.
Maybe that takes a little bit of fighting, and I hope that they're not going to kill each other. I don't think that they will. They don't seem strong enough. But I'm just thinking of two in particular of my 10 children. But no, and my wife's very opposed to that. So usually I would just, hey, you got to stop that. And I'd say it loud enough that they'd be like, and they'd stop.
Yeah, get that dad voice.
And then get over here. You tell me how this started. And then listen to lies for a very long time.
Right.
But if people are around, I will gently remove the children from the area. People who laugh during this time, I get mad. Like, if there's other grown-ups and like, ha ha ha, look at your horrible kids.
Yeah.
I'm just like, a part of me gets a little angry.
Because they are horrible.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And it's just not cool. Like, what are you supposed to do when you're the guest? Like, what are you supposed to do?
If you're the guest,
you just like
case?
fold your hands and wait silently?
You instantly find a way to relate very quickly.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter if you're a parent or not. You go, I can relate to that. Man, yeah, kids do fight. That's okay.
I think you should take sides. I think if you're a guest and someone's kids start just brawling,
takes a hat off and everybody starts putting cash in.
I'm not saying you should get in on the fight and start beating on the kids, but I think that you should like
if you're the guest, you shouldn't jump in and start.
You probably shouldn't. Also,
no, you should. You should definitely not do that.
But I think you could like take sides. Like, oh, my money's on him. Yeah,
my money's yeah. I think that's probably fine.
Fair.
I would laugh at that, and that'd make me feel better. But I think being like, anytime that my kids screw up in public or at somebody else's house, whatever the case might be, when they act like kids, it's always such a relief when somebody just says, "Hey, man, they're kids, and it's okay." So I think if you're a guest, that's the best route. But yeah, if it's me and it's my kids and it's in front of others, I'll remove them from that area, take them aside, and address it with them, and then they'll end up fighting like 5 minutes later again. But yeah, that's generally...
Because what's our motto on this show?
My go-to.
Kids are the worst.
No, they're not.
There's kids are company
of adults
too.
Who are worse.
Kids are company too. Like I said it.
All right, Chuck. This one is not too specific, but it's definitely something that we have all been if you're in a relationship. And as a host, it's all something that we've experienced.
Okay.
You got a couple friends coming over, and it's just the two of them, a couple, married or dating, whatever the case is. And things have happened in the course of the trip over to your house. And they have been fighting. And they show up at your house, and you know that they've been fighting.
Oh, how can you tell? Is it the fact that they keep saying things about the other person right in front of them?
It's usually they don't talk at all. They just don't talk, and they both kind of look down, and they won't look at each other, and they stand apart. I have a go-to in this situation, but I'm curious what you would say.
Yeah.
Has this happened to you ever?
Yeah. I find it's actually really similar to what you were just talking about, but that relatability. Because all of us have been in this spot, right?
Oh, yes.
You feel like, when you're walking into this house that like, oh man, we just had this like throwdown in the car. We're the worst people.
Right.
Like that's what they're feeling right now.
It is, absolutely.
They're feeling embarrassed and they're feeling like they... and here they are in your house, and you've like cleaned and cooked a meal, and now like they're sort of like in your shadow. I almost feel like it's really helpful to hit that like relatable spot,
right?
And to like get it out in the like talk about like maybe tell a story about how we were fighting about something stupid. Yep. Earlier in the week.
Yes.
Like, let me tell you how dumb I was being towards my wife. Like, let me tell you this story. I'm a real ding-dong, right? And let them know that, like, it's okay that you were being a ding-dong in the car a minute ago.
Yeah.
And maybe they want to talk about it, and maybe they don't. But either way, like, they know that it's okay.
And that and we all know if you've been fighting in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. I mean, I kind of do a very similar thing. I just help people. I just say, "Oh, you guys were you guys fighting?" I have done this on a few occasions, and they're like, "Yeah, we've been fighting." It's like, "Oh, let me tell you about this fight."
And then you start taking sides. You start putting money down.
I usually take out my hat. All right, guys, come on. We have But yeah, I think that's great because we have all been there, and I think you touched on something really important. One, it's really cool that people still come to your house after they've been fighting. Because my inclination in the past has been, oh, we're fighting. I cannot possibly step into that shadow of this couple who is usually doing an amazing job of like having the nice house and the food and everything. So the fact that they show up is really cool and an incredibly vulnerable experience. And if you're able to relate to them in that, I found that that's helpful. And I usually go straight to our own worst fights. Never one that makes my wife look that bad.
No, usually you got to make yourself.
Always me.
No, here's the dumb thing.
Let me tell you about this stupid thing I got mad about once.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah,
that's it. Hopefully, I think that's a really helpful one for people. It's just enter into it, and for the most part, I think it's going to be okay. Yep. Chuck, I want to talk tonight about you and I.
I love talking about you and I.
I want to talk about you and I. I want to talk about me. I want to talk about I.
I'm going to talk
tonight.
about
number one. Oh, my, me, my.
That's the song?
That's a good... No, it's not. It's not. But we know it. No, I want to talk about inviting people over. You and I both... In a way that... I don't want to say this in a way that is self-serving or makes us sound better than we are, but we do approach, I think, hosting with some intentionality in terms of inviting people over. Part of that, I want to start out by saying this, I think part of that comes from the fact that we've, like you said at the beginning, we've both been invited over to someone's house at a time in our life when it was very meaningful. Can you tell us about a time when?
Yeah, most of you folks know we're ding dongs, and that comes with like a lot of history of active ding dongery.
Active ding dongery. I love that.
Which is a thing I've never said. But, no, like I certainly have come through times where I needed somebody to help me out. I needed somebody to like kind of shepherd me along and provide like in a lot of different ways. I have talked about this a little bit, I think, but I spent years traveling around. I have a lot of experience being hosted. I spent like 3.5 years in a like traveling theater group, just going from people's house to people's house, staying for, a couple nights a week, moving from town to town. So I have been hosted a lot and in some like really incredible situations, but one that really stands out and one that was like really impacted me was we would spend like 6 weeks during the summertime and back at our headquarters in LA, and so we would usually stay with someone during that time. So it's like a long period of time as opposed to a few days, which is what I normally did. And this guy who was like active duty in the Navy, he was a young dude. I mean, had to be like, I was probably 20, 21 at this point, and he was maybe a few years older than me.
Oh, okay.
And he had this like little apartment that he lived in, and he was, like I said, he was active duty. He was at work like all the time. And he found out about like our need to have people hosted, and he was like, sure, like I have this space, which was not a ton of space, mind you. Like this was a tiny apartment outside of LA. He didn't like have furniture to speak of. Like he had like
most of us in our early 20s.
Yeah, like he had a little like you might call it like Japanese style computer desk, which means it was like some crates that he would kneel in front of to play like on his computer, play Call of Duty.
Oh, that's funny.
And then he had like a cot set up in the one room, and I get to chill at his place for like 6 weeks. And this was just a dude who, by most standards didn't have a ton and like didn't have a lot figured out in his life, was just like a young dude, and really opened it up. He's like, yeah, I want to have like another young, dude just come and stay. And that, like, just the act of that impacted me really strongly. Like I was used to staying with families, with people who had, like bigger places, like, yeah, you can stay in one of our guest rooms.
Yeah.
And, like that kind of situation. But to see this dude who had, not a whole ton, was not a lot older than me, and was just like, yeah, it's really important to me that I share this out and that I have like a young dude in here. if I can help him out. And he like let me borrow his car to drive around.
Wow.
Like,
that's really cool.
I mean, this dude just gave so much to me, and it just like totally selflessly. It really made like a huge impact on me, and really kind of influenced me wanting to do that later on.
Wow. That explains a lot about what I know about you and the way I see you interact with young guys. I mean, we'll get into that in a second. For us, we moved to Tucson 7 years ago, around this time.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of came from a lonely situation. By the time we moved here, I can't really remember the last time that we had been invited over to someone's house for dinner. And we were a young couple. We had our oldest son, who at the time was 3 years old. Most of the people that we knew, I was working for a church at the time, and most of the people that we knew didn't have homes, even the volunteers that we knew. And we started going to a church about a year after we had lived here. And I met a man that you know as well, and his wife, Paul and Jean. And Paul was the first person, as far as I know, in Tucson to invite Trish and I over for dinner. And without getting like too sentimental, a lot of what we do now is in a very large way influenced and was modeled first by Paul and Jean.
Yep.
I remember going over to their house. First, he asked me to bring something, which was really cool. He said, "Hey, you sound like you know beer," which was a boost to my, young ego. Could you bring over some beer? And I brought over a 6-pack of like mix and match, and he complimented me on that. And when we first came in, he made us take off our shoes, and Paul is Filipino. He provided food that he had learned to make from his mom, things that he had grown up eating, and got to see a part of his culture. And we felt so cared for and so loved. He did ribs too. He had like this really cool mix of different foods. We're actually it's so cool that as we're talking about this, Paul invited us over this upcoming weekend, and I haven't talked to him or seen him since Star Wars Force Awakens. We went and saw that together, which was really cool. But I'm so like, when you think of going over to other people's houses, and I know you can relate to this, Chuck, as an introvert, it can be a little daunting sometimes. Mm-hmm. Overall, always enjoyable. But with Paul, I just feel so welcome in his home that I genuinely look forward to going to his house almost as like a reprieve from like the hardness of life. It's just the kind of place where I step in and I feel so loved. And that was at a time when we were this young couple who just didn't have anybody doing that for us. And I think right after that was when I really fell in love with hosting. And I remember Paul was one of the first people I invited over with a couple other guys, and cooks. There's a picture on Facebook from a long time ago of from that time cooking steaks in the backyard, and I felt like Paul. It was a really cool thing. So yeah, I really hope one of the reasons why we even do this podcast is not just to invite people over, but to be intentional about who you invite over. Mm-hmm. We both have people I think that are kind of special to us, not to say like groups, but in a sense like a specific types of people that our hearts are drawn to, that we really it brings us life to have them over. Would you mind speaking into that a little bit? No.
Yeah, it's totally true. I know for me personally, I have really, for like the last several years, tried really hard to reach out to the people I work with, and specifically like young or like our age or younger, just like single dudes, like having been in that spot and really needed, like I literally like ran away from my family when I was a young dude, and so I know kind of where they're at in that spot. If there's a bunch of guys that we work with who don't have a lot of family around them, and I think that's like a situation that a lot of young dudes find themselves in today. Like once upon a time, you would grow up in the town where your family was, and then you would just stay there forever. And that, especially where we live now, is a very transitory kind of city. There's a lot of folks here who came here, either intentionally or unintentionally, like to get away from their family, and just don't have a ton of like connections or roots here. And it has been, sometimes intentionally and sometimes just, because that is how it works out. Being able to have these dudes into our house and be able to just kind of share in some of the really wonderful things that come from having a family and like the time just around the table. I can't tell you how many times I've had a young dude look at me and go like, I haven't sat down at a dinner table and ate food like this in years.
It's so true. It's so true.
The act of just gathering around a table is foreign to these dudes.
Sure.
And I absolutely love to share that. And so that's been something over the last few years. Like I just really try and reach out to like the young dudes that I work with, which has kind of been the case. Like everywhere I've worked for a while now has just been kind of populated with young dudes.
Right.
And so I really enjoyed doing that. I really like I don't go into this with like I want to mentor, like I know more than these guys, because I really don't. But what I really want to do is just share that feeling and like that experience of just hanging out with a family, which a lot of these dudes just aren't doing right now.
And I can even like attest to the fact, because I've come over to your house for holidays and for different things, and I've seen guys that we know come over to your house, and one thing that I can say is like I almost can attest to the fact that I've never seen you happier than in those moments. There's something about that experience that I've witnessed in you that you just really, this isn't for you like, oh, this is really hard work, I gotta have these guys over. Like you really genuinely enjoy having these guys over, and I think that's cool. And I'm even speaking into that too, like I find these guys that, the type of guy that you're mentioning, single dudes, a lot of times they just make some of the best guests.
Yeah,
they really do. Like in a lot of ways, like they're fun, and they can hang out a little later than normal.
Right.
They don't have to be back home
for
like
better or worse. Yeah,
for better or worse. Oh man, So for us, it's really, and again, I think this comes back to just when people would invite us over. Trish and I are really drawn to couples who are in a stage of life maybe that is just like one step behind us. A lot of times, a couple who's dating, a couple who is just recently married, a couple who's just had their first kid. We love having them over and getting to just be around them. And generally what we find, and it's funny because we do actually have a very like low view of I think in a lot of ways a low view of ourselves. And we don't invite them over to boost this, but what we do find is that in a lot of cases, you'll find young couples who don't have a lot of good examples of family life in that next stage. And I know that's something that we always wanted. Again, that's something like Paul and Jean showed to us. They had children who were teenagers at the time. And for us, that was just really helpful to see people like, hey, this is what it looks like to hold a job for a long time. This is what it's like to provide for your family and to keep a home and to raise children and to, discipline them when they fight in front of people and all these different things.
I know that was huge for me when we first had our daughter. And I don't know if every parent goes through this, but I know that we felt so much like we had the worst child that ever was born.
I think that is, unless it's just the two of us, I think that's very, very common that you're just, I think you're surprised by the fact that children are like not what you see in movies.
No, and they're like, it's the hardest thing that you will do is to have this little being that demands you to make it better and yet refuses to be great all the time.
Yeah.
And you just have this like biological imperative to make them be fine, and sometimes you can't, and it just breaks you a little bit. And to be able to be around other people, this was so huge for us, to be able to be around other people who were just a little bit farther ahead than us, and have them say like, it's really okay. Like,
it's okay.
You're gonna make it through this. And
right.
yeah, we've been there where you are. And of course we were like, no, you don't understand. Like, our kids, you don't understand. And of course we had no clue. They were so much like wiser than us at this point, having gone through it. But it did make a huge impact on us in our young couple and young parent lives. So.
Yeah. I mean, to even look at like the next stage now is we've got, my oldest is 10 years old, and he's growing into like this wonderful young man. But it was very hard early on, just because he was a kid, and that's the way kids are. But it's cool to know even now people who are at that next stage in life, who have kids who are going into college, or even older than that, kids who are already married and have kids themselves. And you find, in two cases, both of which I think are beneficial to us, is you find one, that their kid that they went through all these troubles with turned out to be this awesome adult, and you get to see that and experience that and know that, and that gives us hope for our children. And sometimes too, on the other side, we have friends whose children grew up and just kind of made a wreck of their lives. And even that, these parents, though they've gone through some really hard things, even that gives me some hope that there's hope on both sides of this. I figure, like, I have 3 kids, the odds of one turning out kind of rough, it's like, it's there, it's fine.
Yeah, they're your kids.
Yeah, like, it's exactly. If I know anything about myself, that could be the reality. But man, that's really helpful. Another group, Chuck, that I think we both kind of, you mentioned earlier, Tucson. We live in Tucson. Tucson Arizona is a very transitory city for a few reasons. We have a university here. We are the biggest small college town in the country. Yep. Like, Tucson is just built around the University of Arizona. So we know a ton of students. I don't even know how many tens of thousands there are, but it's quite a few. We also have an Air Force base here. I know you and your wife lived with an airman and his wife at one point. And also we have a few really large employers like Raytheon that is they build missiles, I believe, and they employ
lots of secret stuff.
They employ like 12,000 engineers and just people for all kinds of things there. And so a lot of the people that we meet here are here for a career, are here for college, or are here for the military career. And so I don't know if I believe you've done some of this as well, but having these people who are far away from home into your own home can be a really cool thing. For all kinds of different reasons and in all kinds of different situations. And the one thing that they all share is like they are away from whatever community that they had. We get a lot of people who come here and are just like brand new to everything here. And Tucson is not a place for most people that you immediately fall in love with, can I say? I love this city, and I know that you do too. Yep. Very few people do when they first come here. If they come from anywhere green, this is a very hard place to live.
It's tough. I dragged my wife here from Vermont.
This is not Vermont.
It was not a fun, and it was also July, and she was 8 months pregnant. That was not an ideal situation. It was about 1,000 degrees. But yeah, like not everybody, but the majority of the people who come here in this situation, come here for work, come here for school, are leaving somewhere that they love, right? And leaving people that they love, and to be able to provide something in that realm, something that is comfortable and familiar, again, just the power of that kitchen table or that dining room table, of being able to gather around and have that like family atmosphere, can really help people feel at home in a place that is extremely different from home. We love, it's honestly one of the hardest things that we do, as we have a lot of college students come through our place. It's a cyclical thing. We have them come in and they stay for a couple of years, and we love them, and we grow really attached to them, and then they leave
and
to
then
go
they
on
break
to
our hearts
because
leave.
they are that's just what they have to do.
Kevin, really, Bakersfield is not much better than Tucson.
No,
come home, buddy.
I don't understand why anyone would ever leave the city, but boy, are they eager to. And of course they have to, and it's the hardest thing. And I don't know if this is going to make it easier or harder when my own kids do the same thing. But yeah, I feel like we've kind of gone through that a little out of order.
Yep.
We've watched so many people like come, and we've gotten attached to them, and kind of shepherded them through like the beginning of their young adulthood, and then sent them on their way. And then bawled for like 2 weeks straight. But it's made such a huge impact on both of us, like on them and on us.
Right.
We learned so much from these folks, and it helps us to just like grow and be able to do that and look back on when we were in those times, and thankfully we are very different people than we were then, and it's a really, really incredible and very difficult, but totally worthwhile thing.
Totally worthwhile. Absolutely, Chuck. I agree. I think just in the current, without going into detail, like the current climate in our country, one of the questions that people from any background and any point of view is going to ask is, how can I make things better? How can I make America a better place? How can I make the world a better place? And I just want to say, being intentional about who you're inviting over, whether it's a single dude or a person who's in a stage of life before your own that might benefit from being around you and the comfort that you provide them, or if it's someone who's just away from home, having them into your home is a great way to love people. My wife introduced me to a book that I recommend to everybody. It's called Bread and Wine, A Love Letter to Life Around the Table with Recipes. And it's a book by a woman named Shauna Nyquist. And Shauna Nyquist, she has a theology of having people into your home and how you can really love them. And there's a quote that I wanted to share that I read today. And in it, she says, "I think preparing food and feeding people brings nourishment not only to our bodies, but to our spirits. Feeding people is a way of loving them in the same way that feeding ourselves is a way of honoring our own createdness and fragility." And I think that just is so incredibly true. We joke around a lot about how we like to impress people. We like to have fun. We like to do weird things with food and all that. But at the end of the day, there is something that we really enjoy about having people around the table and being able to honor the fact that they are just like us, fragile, that they have needs, and we're able to love them and we're able to nourish them. And there's something about that I think really at the end of the day, just and I've seen it in your home, and hopefully it happens in mine. We've been able to see the world, even in a small way, become a little bit of a better place.
Yeah.
You agree?
I do.
Cool.
We're just nodding. It feels good.
It's good, man. It feels
good.
I don't know if it's just
a little bit of a mushy one.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think so. I mean, I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It's good. I'm going to
hit us up, y'all. We're going to move on, but we want to hear from you. If you are doing this, if you're not sure how to do this, if you are on the receiving end of this, we want to know what you think.
If you've been over to our home and you're like, I did not feel loved in the slightest, just post it on Facebook.
Yeah. Let us know what you're thinking. We're going to move on. Will you play us out, Jared?
Yeah. Okay, guys. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, Jared, One of my favorite things that we've done so far is get questions from folks, and I know that a lot of people have submitted stuff that we haven't answered. I want you to dig into the archives. I want you to hit us with a question that someone has asked on Facebook.
This question comes from Brent, and Brent asks, what are some go-to board games when you have company over?
Yes, this is my zone. I love this question. You should only play Monopoly. It's the perfect game to find out who you hate the most.
Yes, that's a good game when you're like, hey, I don't want to go to sleep in the next 5 hours.
I think I should call some of my friends. Let's play Monopoly.
Don't you think Monopoly really, like, more so than any other game, Monopoly shows a person's character.
Yes.
Like, their deepest aspects of their personalities are, like, full-blown on display.
Well, here's the other thing is that there is nobody who won't cheat at Monopoly. And I feel like that says something about us as humans.
Yeah.
But anybody will cheat at Monopoly if they get the opportunity. Nobody who's ever been the banker hasn't palmed a couple of bills.
I've never been angrier than when I was playing Monopoly, and I can see why people would be willing to cheat. Is because just like in life,
I don't need to be reminded of how difficult my life is during this game.
Exactly. Oh, this guy sitting next to me, who in real life I'm already envious of him, right? But now he just landed on both of the blue properties, and he's got Park Place and Boardwalk. Son of a Can you bleep that out for me? When I get to that Boardwalk and he's already built a hotel on it and I owe $1,400 in rent and the game is over and he's laughing and I'm like, you're in my house. Oh, yeah. So, no, really. What's
ever play Monopoly.
Never play
That's
Monopoly.
My recommendation. I love games. I love board games. I love having people over playing games. Yeah. There's a game I recently discovered that I have been really into having people over. It's called Small World. And it's...
Oh, I've seen that game. I've never played it.
We had some friends over and they brought it and we played it and we loved it and we bought it. Like I was on my phone buying it as we finished the game.
That's a good game.
And we've had several people over since and just playing it. I highly recommend it. Has some mechanics that will remind you of Risk. If you played that at any point, if you were willing to dedicate 19 hours of your life to doing that, it has some elements of like Settlers of Catan, if you're into that. But it's a very like approachable, easy to get into, and it's also wacky. Like it's very silly and it encourages a lot of like the role playing and getting into stuff that I really enjoy when playing games. I feel like it's a good way to kind of like break down barriers when people are over. It's super fun. Highly recommend Small World.
Absolutely. I like games that embarrass people, and so one of my favorites, and I've actually had a really hard time with this. I'm going to be honest, Brent. I'm not. Like, there's this game that we like to play called Mad Gab, and I imagine quite a few of you out there have tried Mad Gab. Chuck, have you played it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so Mad Gab. But what I find is I'm actually really, really good at Mad Gab. One of the couples that we hang out, the wife is really, really good at Mad Gab, and it just makes it no fun for anybody. But it's really fun if nobody's good at it, but I'm answering this question in the worst way. Is Balderdash still a thing?
Yeah, that's a thing.
I freaking love Balderdash. Yeah. Play that. That's good. Don't play Cards Against Humanity.
Ever.
If you ever want to look people in the eye again.
It's not a good thing to do.
No,
it's not a good thing for anyone to do.
No, this isn't The Purge. Like, you don't get to just... There's no game that makes it okay to say whatever the hell you want about people of all different walks of life.
So if you take anything away from this, Brent, it's that it's definitely not Monopoly Cards Against Humanity.
Never
that,
once.
You're pretty good. Once. You're in pretty good shape. I love that you bring up Balderdash. I want to tell you about this game that I found, and I don't know if this is even like findable anywhere. I found it at Bookman's, which Tucson folks will know, and other folks like just know that this is like a place where people send their garbage, and you can go buy it.
You can trade and buy and sell books and DVDs and tapes.
And we found this game called Wise and Otherwise. And if you're familiar with the balderdash mechanic where people like make up the definition to a thing, it's the same mechanic, but for like ancient sayings.
Oh.
And so you get the first half of an ancient Roman or an ancient Carthaginian or an ancient Ethiopian saying.
Like Rome wasn't built.
Yeah, and then you make up the second half.
Okay, nice.
And then you get the real second half, and the judge has to like figure out which one was the real.
Have so much fun with that.
It is the most fun. Like if you like these kind of like social interaction style games, this is like top of the heap for me.
You have to bring
so
this
much
over
more
to my
fun
house.
than like an
this?
apples to apples or a Cards Against Humanity. I do own this. We will play it soon. It's one of my favorite things.
I want to play that.
Wise and Otherwise, highly recommend.
Okay, great.
All right, there you go, Bren. See if you can find those things. Jared, I think we should break down this here podcast. What do you say we do a rap?
I think we should do a sappy rap.
A sappy rap?
A sappy rap.
A sappy rap is going to be real sticky.
Give me a real sappy beat, Chuck.
Don't know how to do that. Here we go.
All right. If you're having someone over, ought to do some thinking about who they're gonna be. It's country now. I don't even like this.
No, nothing is good about this.
All right, let's try again. Ready, go.
Here we go. Even sappier this time. And
have people over into your house. Feed them food, don't feed them a mouse. And if you don't feed them, what is wrong? I got nothing. This is another song.
Jared, have you ever heard a rap? Do you know what the rap is?
I can't say that I do.
Okay.
All right. Hey, look, we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on the web at www.companymenpodcast.com.
And if you forget the www, that's fine.
Hey,
fine.
Can we talk to the listeners out there who really like us?
Yeah.
All right. There's
all three.
All three. To the three of you that like our show, can you do something for us? Because we want to keep doing this and we want to keep spreading the good word about hosting.
Can you please send us a lot of money?
That would be great. if you all work together to just pay us to do this, we'd
band
be more
together
inclined.
and send us all the money.
Help us get the word out. We can do all kinds of things online, but the best way that you can help us to get the word out about the Company Men podcast is to share. When you see a post about a podcast that you enjoyed, and you don't have to do it for one that you hate, and I know there's a few episodes I hate, in fact, but if you come across an episode that you enjoy, share it. Let people know. Get the word out there and spread the good news about hosting. Yeah, any thoughts on that, Chuck?
I think that'd be fine.
That would be fine.
I think that'd be fine.
As always, we recommend everybody go on iTunes, grab a family member's iPhone. We've both done this many times, and review us on iTunes. Subscribe and write a review. Yeah, and give us 5 stars.
Yeah.
Or 4.
Or 5.
Or
5 would be fine.
Preferably
Let's
5.
stick with 5.
We have not gotten a single 4-star review
Yeah,
yet.
don't be the first. Don't be the first. Don't be the first to give us 4 stars. But you're going to be that guy?
Oh, that'd be
Come
horrible.
on.
No.
Come on.
All right, cool. Well, Chuck, like we say every week.
Yeah, let's close it out with what we say every week.
Rome wasn't built
with straw or sticks. It was built with bricks.
It was built with bricks.
The Three Little Pigs was based on Rome. Did you guys know that?
The Three Little Pigs?
It was based on Rome.
Yeah, because they built one Rome with straw and one Rome with sticks.
The first 2 Romes were destroyed by a wolf. That's the story of Rome.
Oh, we are the Company Men.
I'm Chuck Tomerberg.
I'm Jared Carter.
And we're done.